Hello, this is Roma Army. She's one of those feminist chameleons. This young lady, she's realized she can get attention and views, and probably pay by pretending that she's about male issues. And of course, guys are desperate. They look for their Joan of Arc, who's going to protect them. And they're probably going to, if we look in the comments section, most likely they're bragging this woman up. Now, that being said, I'm going to focus on the most important cases in this video where she exposes the fact she's a feminist. She is. She's going to talk about the pay gap. We'll see if she says it's bullshit.
More wages. Yeah, I'm sure I turned some heads with that statement. Y'all have heard about the pay gap. It's pretty much a nice way of saying that society fucked up by paying one group a different amount based on their genitals.
Okay, she believes in it. Or at the very least, she's spouting it. Anyone who's for men's issues would never do this. It's been debunked, so this is a bold-faced lie.
Currently in the Western world, women on average earn 80% of what men do. So it can be tempting to be like, yeah, when you hear it's reversing.
Well, you mean disappearing, right? Reversing suggests that women will be paid more than men for the same work, and that's a good thing. But in any event, this is a lie. She knows the pay gap is a lie, that men work more hours and therefore get more money. And that's all it is.
Until you really hear what that means. By analyzing the pay of workers in 147 of the US's biggest cities, they discovered that unmarried, childrenless women under the age of 30 are now making 8% more than they are.
Of course they are, for two reasons. One is that there's a bias. They get work quotas, job quotas, but also notice who they are. They're unmarried, they have no children, and they're under 30. In other words, they're working to take care of themselves. The women that have children and are married aren't working as much, if at all, because the men are working, and there's the pay gap.
Equivalent partners. In Atlanta and Memphis, they're making 20% more. New York women not far behind at 17%.
Don't need to hear any more of this. You just know that she's spouting the pay gap myth. So she's a feminist.
The main reason for this is the same reason why women weren't making as much as men. It was the education gap. We need to create.
There you go. Now she's blaming education. These women weren't making as much because they didn't work as much. It's that simple. And now she's blaming the education system. So the education system was holding women down. This is bullshit.
Create an equally educated and paid society to fix this. Men's issues the society ignores. And
there you go. So these women who, like, when the little girls are going to school, there was no bias against them. It was that simple. So this is a bold-faced lie. The girls just didn't go into, they weren't interested in higher education as much as boys were, because they knew they were going to get taken care of.
Video off very lightly because I don't want it to turn into this boring, like, men's problems versus women's problems. No. Breast cancer.
But she does do it throughout the video. She always brings up women's. You can't bring up men's issues without bringing up, like, comparing them to the opposite sex. It's that simple. So of course she doesn't want to blame the girls for anything. She doesn't want them to, society is made up 50% of women, so they're involved. So sorry, lady, if men have got it bad, it's because the women are involved in it. They are to blame. Now, talk about parental issues, and she's going to expose herself again.
And blames on men, part 9. My favorite one to talk about. Parental issues. family courts. Just over a century ago, women had absolutely no say. Men could do whatever they wanted to their wives.
Okay, now that she's pointed out another feminist lie. Women were never impressed in the past, and men couldn't just do whatever they wanted. If a woman beat up on her husband and everyone knew about it, they would make fun of him. Guys weren't just allowed to beat up on their wives. Also, a husband was responsible for his wife's debt. And the simple fact is that if there was any bias for the man, it wasn't because the society preferred the man. Society didn't want to look after the children. And way back then, when women didn't want to get jobs, they wouldn't be able to take care of the children. So they gave custody to the men because the men had the means to look after the children. Because the wife couldn't. Of course, they fixed that with, of course, child support. So now you see child support where the woman doesn't have to work and society doesn't have to take care of the children. So that's how they do it now.
And that was their right. Men used to have the entire say on whether women could see their kids or not. Thank God that changed, because that's not right. Both people should have a say. Unfortunately, in an attempt to balance it out, it went pew.
But it was always imbalanced against the men anyway, way back when. This is a bold-faced lie. There was never any balance. They were always in favor of the women. And that's why in modern times, it's going off the rails.
The other way. Newsweek released a study that showed that women win 5 out of 6 custody battles. And over 1 million.
Enough of that. Okay. Here.
America a year live without a father. Now, what I believe the reason for this to be is, again, societal's embeddance of what masculinity is. So
so this is wrong. Society just doesn't like men. And they punish him. It's legal for a woman to kick the man out of the family unit and make him pay child support. If she doesn't mention this, she is a failure.
This older generation of judges who still believe that a woman should be at home taking care of the kids and the man should be working. Sexism oppresses both genders.
No, it doesn't. She's pulling feminist garbage again. Women were never impressed. They're not impressed now. This sexism is against men, period. So she's always doing this horse shit while she's trying to include the women on it and say, oh, let's not blame the girls for anything. And we're all equally in this. It's not. Men's issues exist because there is a gender imbalance and always has been.
We need to chase out any bias in the court systems. Last but not least, men's issues the society ignores and blames men for the most.
So if she's going to suggest that, is she suggesting that the MRM get together and actually start working on that, or men start getting to work together with it? She says nothing. This is what I have to say every time.
Part 10. Their own oppression. People fail to understand me when I use the term societal
I don't have to go in for it. It's pretty well end. I'm going to put the video in the description box. I was going to go through the whole thing and nitpick and knock it down, but I showed the major parts of it, which shows that Roma is a feminist. She believes in feminist rhetoric. Or at least she espouses it. And she is not any good for men. Okay, let's look at the comments section. I wouldn't look at Ethan Perry. I wouldn't call her a feminist because that word is tarnished. She's a person with common sense. See, so in spite of her spouting feminist rhetoric, Ethan loves it. Boys, I'm going to say it. She is #1 candidate in the male presidency of elections. Yeah, right. I would love this chameleon, this bullshitter, to speak for my issues. Someone who believes that women were oppressed in the past. A smart person with common sense and TikTok. I can't believe it. My faith in humanity is restored. Yeah, you're also wrong. Women get lower fines. See, there's this guy speaks it. So these guys are coming here. She's got over 500,000 subs because she's a woman. She's a Joan of Arc. She's got as many views. This is pathetic. Oh my God. Look at this one. Be aware that I am depressed and I hate my life due to being a man that is still single at 40 years old. Smokey McBee. What does this have to do with anything? Anything. And this is other guys, these guys who are come in to want to worship this liar. There's also guys like this that come in and want dates. Like his idea of a men's issue is that he doesn't get a date. But the post-masculinist, thank you. Roma Army believes in the pay gap myth. She's a feminist, and you guys are hungry for female validation. That's the reason why you're worshiping her. Yes. Look, any channel that's actually for men's rights in the proper way is tiny because it doesn't give guys what they want to hear. Because guys don't want to hear like, oh, you've got to do the work yourself and get involved and fight for your rights. Guys don't want to hear that. They want a savior. They want to know that someone's going to do the work for them. And they also look for a Joan of Arc because they know that a man talking on the issues gets shouted down. And so they're desperately hoping there's some woman, they'll come to the rescue. Anything. Why aren't these guys backing up as they really are? Hey, that looks like a decent video. I'll probably look at that later. But the point is that Esther Vilar, she was actually what Roma Army is trying, it claims to be. She really did speak for men. And she really did bash the female sex. That's what Roma Army refuses to do. And yet Esther Vilar bashed the female sex. And guess what? A lot of people don't even know who Esther Vilar is. And the reason they don't is because she didn't tell men what they want to hear, that I'm going to come here and protect you and your traditional values are good. And you get to be the good middle workhorses and I'll promise you a bunch of dates. I'll promise you a bunch of relationships. Guys don't want to deal with reality. I'm sorry. That's why they went to this Roma Army loser. Anyway, that ends this video. Roma Army is not only a failure, she is a poser. And guys are probably giving her money and views. They're definitely giving her views for to spout feminist rhetoric. And she's never going to be Esther Vilar is the only one exception that I know of. You know how guys say, hey, not all women are like that. There's a woman who's not like that. Are these guys on her side? No. Because she bashes her own sex and they're worshipers and they're not into that. So they go to these con artists like Roma Army. Anyway, that ends this video. Goodbye, everyone.